So now we have our pivot table, but let's go ahead and remove our count of street numbers. To do that, we can just go down to our value section, click the count of street numbers field, and click remove field. And it moves away. Now let's try putting the price field down there. Let's take our price and drag it down to the values section and see what happens. Looks like Excel looked into the price field, saw there was full of numbers, so it made a guess that we might want to have these summed up in our pivot table. Kind of interesting, but not really what we want. Don't worry though, we don't have to remove the price field and put the street address back to get a count. If Excel chooses the wrong way to summarize or aggregate your data, it's pretty easy to change. Let's go back to the value section and click on the sum of price field, and then click on value price settings. This brings up a dialog box that shows how it's going to aggregate our sum, our value. Right now it's on sum, but as you see in this box we have several other choices. There's count, average, max, min, and then a couple statistical functions, product, standard deviation, variance. For now, let's just stick with the count option. While we're here, let's also rename the field. Now Excel is going to give our values field a pretty straightforward name, the count of price. While it's technically accurate, it's not really what is going to be meaningful to us in our pivot table. So in the custom name box, let's type number of properties. And that will be our custom field name. And then click OK or hit enter. And there you have it. Here's our first pivot table showing a list of properties by bedrooms and bathrooms. Looking back at the requirements, Jamie also wanted to be able to filter her table by city, state, and zip code. Let's add these filters to our pivot table. Similar to how we added fields to the row and column sections, we'll add them to the report filter area. We'll go over here, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to drag the zip code down to the report filter area. Then we'll drag state down, and then scroll up if we need to, and city. Notice our pivot table added these fields to the top of our pivot, and we can click the drop downs now to filter our report. If I want to filter by a state, click Arizona. Oh, only one house there. Go back to all. In looking at the filters though, I'd kind of expect city to be first, then state, and then zip code. No problem. This is an easy fix. Let's go back to the report filter section. Simply click on any field and drag it up or down to change the order. So we can take city and drag it above zip, and then zip below state. And you see how it only takes a few seconds to change the order to something more logical. Now, as we talked about in the demonstrations, report fields by default only let you select one option at a time. So I could only select one city at a time. But at the bottom of that drop-down is a checkbox that lets us select multiple items. When you do that, now you can take the check off several. You can use the all button to toggle all of the cities on or off, and then you could just check a couple. So this really adds some flexibility to our pivot table, being able to do multiple items. The last thing we're going to do with our pivot table sheet is rename the sheet that the pivot table is on. And all we have to do there is go down to our sheet tab, and we will right click on it and select rename. And down here we're going to make this the number of properties tab. And hit enter, and it's entered. At this point, we're pretty much done with this pivot table. So let's move on to making another one so that we can show the minimum, maximum, and average price of homes.